All right, time to disassemble it. There's really no right or wrong way to disassemble it. Everything's got to come apart. Just need to pay attention to how you take it apart. In the carburetor kit, you're going to get an exploded view, which is going to help show where things go, how it fits together. First thing I would recommend you do, though, before you take anything apart, is screw in these air idle adjusting screws till they've just bottom out, and count the number of turns that you're going to turn them in. So like on this one here, there's a half turn, just barely over a half turn. Okay, just make a mental note of that or write it down. This other one, not even a half turn, about a quarter turn. Okay, because the reason I say that is when you put these back in, you're going to have to set them to some kind of initial position, and these instructions that come with the kit say to turn them out 1.5 turns as a starting point. But I have this Weber Carburetor book, and in there they say turn them out 3/4 of a turn. So if you kind of know where they were while the carburetor was on the car, they're probably pretty close. And so what I'm going to do is follow the book here and turn them out 3/4 of a turn when I put them back in, because that's close to where they were now. So anyway, just start taking stuff apart. If your butterflies here open and close properly and there's no slop or looseness in there, no need to take this shaft or these things apart, nor is there any need to take the idle adjusting screw out, because it was set pretty close as is, so I just leave that alone. But pretty much everything else is going to need to come off of it. And like I say, there's no order of disassembly that's necessarily required. If you've got things that are stuck, you don't want to force it. A little heat will many times expand the aluminum and allow you to remove parts. Okay, these two are really tight. So what'll help that is a little heat. And a little tap on the bottom here might help loosen them up. There we go. Okay, that one still don't want to come loose. You don't want to force them too much, because then you just tear up the slot across the top. And finally came loose. Okay, these two here, a screw there, a screw there. When you take them out, you're going to find a little brass weight underneath them that rests on top of a steel ball. So when you take those out, you want to make sure you get those other parts out. You don't turn the carburetor over and they fall out and roll off on the floor and get lost. And sometimes those things aren't going to just fall out, but let's just see. They get stuck. Okay, those fell out. So here's what I'm talking about. A little ball and a little weight. There's the other one. Okay, almost done. Gonna pull this accelerator pump out of here. Just gotta kind of, there we go. And it's kind of stuck too. The carburetor body is still kind of hot. Well, not sure why that's stuck like that. It should slide right out of there, but it's not. There we go. Oh, I see. I just damaged that a little bit because the brass piston is stuck down there. So let me put some WD-40 down in there. And I'm not sure how we're going to get that out. And then these things need to come out of here. Just push that down and pop that up like that. And there's a little cup that's supposed to be come out of there, and it's kind of stuck too. So I'll put some WD down there. Let that soak. This is just an easy out. There's a smaller hole down in the bottom of this little piston. See if I can grab it. There we go. There we go. Now I only have one more thing to get out, and that's that one down there. And it doesn't seem to want to. There we go. It's coming. Okay. The way this works, take this spring off of here. This little hook, which got bent trying to pull this out, goes down here, and there's a little rod, little pin that goes right through there. You can see it in the middle there, and then this hook goes in here, and when you rotate it, it hooks onto that pin. I've got to straighten this back out. Hopefully I won't break it. Okay, that's how it's supposed to look right there. So then this goes down here, and you rotate it, and it makes connection with that. And then that's what, it just slides up and down in that bore. This is your accelerator pump. Okay. So I believe that is everything that needs to come apart. So now it's a matter of cleaning all these parts up. This float assembly comes off of here. You've got to take a little punch and drive that pin out. Okay, I just tapped on this punch and drove this pin straight out, and the float comes out. And this pin, there's actually going to be a new one in the carburetor kit. And then this is your old needle and seat. That just unscrews off there. Okay, here it is all disassembled. Now most of these parts are only going to go back into one location, and with the help of the exploded view on the diagram, you'll be able to figure that out if it just doesn't come to you automatically. So now it's time to get everything cleaned up. If you've got a little can of carburetor cleaner that you can soak parts in, that's probably the best. If not, a can of this carb cleaner spray stuff works real good. Maybe even some other solvents will be in order if your parts are all greasy. These are not, so this won't be too bad. You do want to take this kind of stuff and spray through every single hole and make sure that the cleaner flushes out any dirt or grime inside the holes, and then blow it out with compressed air. Little steel wool maybe on some of these brass parts just to get dirt, corrosion off of them. You don't really want to remove any material, so use a real fine steel wool if you do that, and don't put a lot of pressure, just enough to clean them up. A lot of times I will get the main body clean, and then as I clean the individual parts, I'll go ahead and put them back in here. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to take some time off now and clean everything real good. and then we'll come back and I'll do the assembly. Everything's cleaned up, ready to reassemble it. Here's all the old parts. You don't want to throw anything away till you get completely done putting it back together. Never can tell, you might need something out of there. Here's my kit, and you're not going to use everything in here. You see this gasket and this gasket are very similar, but this one actually won't work on here. This is the one you need, and you'll be able to tell that real easy. You can just lay it on here and see how it matches up, or compare it to your old gasket. This kit is designed to be used on a couple of different carburetors. The one that I'm building here is the Weber 40 DCOE. But most of these parts we'll use. We'll only use one of these two here, and we only need one of these. So let's start putting it back together. And one nice thing about it is most of these parts are only going to go in one location and in one direction. It's going to be really hard to get something in backwards or in the wrong hole. So just pay attention, and it'll go together fairly easy. A few things I'm going to point out along the way as I put it back together. And there's really, you know, just like taking it apart, there's no right or wrong way as to what goes together first. Just start somewhere and keep adding to it. Now obviously you got to get all the stuff that goes in here before you put this cover on, but the order that they go in here doesn't really make any difference. Okay, this is a little discharge valve for the accelerator pump, and it goes right at the bottom of the fuel bowl, and inside here is a little ball, a check ball, and it allows air or fuel to come through this hole and come out this end, but nothing to come back up through it. So you want to make sure this is clean, and you can blow on it from this end here, and air should come out here. If you blow on it from this end, you should get no air coming out the other side. And it goes right down here in the bottom of the float bowl. So I'll just drop it down in there. You want everything nice and snug, but you don't want to over tighten, damage anything or break anything. Let's see, we'll just grab stuff and start putting it in. Here's our air idle adjustment screws. Remember, we checked those before we took them out. And we're going to just lightly bottom them out. As soon as they bottom out, you don't want to keep turning or anything. I'm going to back them off 3/4 of a turn. There's a half turn. There's another 1/4. These little plugs, nothing goes underneath them right here, one on each side. Okay, now these holes here, right here, right here. Let's see, where are they? Oh, here they are. Okay, they're standing up. All right. You notice on the end right here, there's a little aluminum washer. And you also notice that one diameter of this shaft is a little bit smaller than the one on the other side. So this can only go in one way. The small side goes down. You see little holes in here? You need to make sure that you can flush carburetor cleaner and air through those holes, that they're all clean. And you've got some of these washers in the kit, and the reason I pointed out is when I pulled these out, one of them didn't have a washer on it. So either it it never had a washer on it, or it got lost sometime during while I was cleaning it. But usually they're stuck pretty good. You got to take a razor blade or something and kind of slice in there to get them to come off. And then in the kit, you've got new ones, because these kind of get crushed as it goes down in there. So that's one. This one here is the one that didn't even have one on it. And since it didn't have one on it, it's possible that it was stuck down in the bottom there. But I very carefully inspected that area to make sure that wasn't the case, because you don't want two washers down in there. All right, so we got our new washers on here. There's a little flat on one side of this diameter right here, so that gets indexed as it goes in here. And I'm going to turn this upside down so the washer doesn't fall off. There we go. And these things here also get a little O-ring put on them. And when you took it apart, you should have noticed there was a little washer or O-ring on the outside of it. That's good. Now we can put some of this stuff in there. Like I say, if you were to try to put this in the wrong hole, it won't fit there. Way too big there. Won't fit in this hole here either. So really these only go right there. Now, in these other two holes here, we're going to put our little check ball down each one. And then we're going to drop our little weight on top of them. And it doesn't matter which side is which. If you wanted to get it exactly like it was, you'd probably be able to see a little mark on there where it was making contact with the ball before. And all of these things I'm putting in, these, doesn't matter which side they go on, they're identical. You see me switching screwdrivers sometimes. You want a screwdriver that fills up the slot the best you can. You don't want any slop in there, less chance of coming out of them and tearing them up. These little pistons, or whatever you call them, should drop in there real nice and float right to the bottom, just like that. Got a spring goes on top of each one. Got one of these little doodads, and these are the same on both sides, so it doesn't really matter. There's no top or bottom, it's the same. One goes there, one goes there. And then they get compressed. This is like a little retaining washer that will go in there and hold those in place. So you just put that basically right on there. Push it down in there. Kind of push that in place there. There you go. Now this accelerator pump, it's kind of the same as those two things. It just drops down in there. And this little plate snaps in place. Should actuate freely. Kind of push that in. Make sure it's all the way down. When you open the butterflies, it should drop that down. Looking good. In the kit, you'll have a new needle and seat valve. This is what lets the fuel in, and then when the float bowl is full, this little seat gets pushed up there by the floats, because the fuel raises the floats and it'll seal off the flow of fuel coming into the bowl so it won't be flooding out. Yeah, there's a little washer that goes on the bottom of that. You need to make sure you get that little washer on there, right there. Okay, and then that just gets screwed right in there. Tighten it down good with 10mm wrench. Drop that seat in there. Then the float goes right here, but we don't want to put it on yet, because if you put the float on, you have to take it back off in order to put this gasket on. So we need to set that gasket in place. Now we got a new hinge pin for this float. Just like this. Okay, before we drive that pin all the way in, we can check the float level, and I've already looked at the specifications, and when the float's like this, you need about 8 to 9mm up to the bottom of the float from the edge here. And then when you flip it over like this and it drops down, it should be about 15mm. So I've got a little scale right here. So if we hold that up right there, and I put this on there, that's right about 8.5. So that'll be good. Let's flip it over and see what it looks like. Right there. It's about 16, maybe 17. But what we use to adjust this and to adjust the other measurement is the same tab. So since the other one's coming in pretty good at about 8, I'm going to live with 16 or 17 on the other one. Put this on here. You can do one last check, look like everything's in place. You look at your parts. Oh, there's one thing that's got to go on there. That's why you look at your parts. This little baffle goes right here. There we go. Taps in place. Now, anything else got to go in there? I don't think so. Okay, this little cover goes right here. We got a gasket for it. This plug goes right here, but before we put that in, we've got this little gas filter or strainer that goes in there. as a last chance to catch any debris that might be coming through the system. It pushes right down in there. Like that. And we'll get a gasket for it. The fuel inlet is right here. Goes just like that. We got a couple of washers for it. Okay. This bottom of the float bowl, this cover that goes right here. So we got these two gaskets that they give us. Either one would probably work. I like this one here because it leaves all this space open. Don't need that, so I'm going to just take and cut that little tab off right here. Because it serves no purpose. Okay, we got a little cover that goes right here. And we got a couple of gaskets for that. We only need one. Okay. And we got one more thing right here. There's no gasket or anything for it. It just sits right there. There is a little brass screen right up here, and this will pull out with some needle nose pliers. So you want to make sure you get that nice and clean, and then it just slides back in there. Now, all we have left is, before we put the air cleaner base plate on here, put these back in. One of these Venturis came out when I was cleaning it. The other one stayed in, because usually they're kind of stuck in there. And there's only one way they'll go. There's a little pin right here. See that little pin? Anyway, that goes down this slot right here. And just goes all the way and drops in. These things here, same thing, there's a little spring hanging out of the side of this one right there. And that just goes down that same slot. Kind of like this. If you were to try to put this in upside down, you might get it in there. In fact, you would get it in there. But then these things here aren't going to slide in. So really only one way it's going to go and work properly. And again, there's no left or right. They'll work on either side. So those slide in good. And these things here, a lot of times you'll see, and you may even have this on yours, where instead of being flat right here, they come up with a little horn looking top. But anyway, what they do is they keep all that Venturi package in place. Because in my case, when I put this, I haven't even cleaned this up yet, but when I put this air cleaner base on there, while it seats down against those, keeps all that stuff in place. So all I have left is just get this put on there. But basically that's it. This carburetor is ready to go back on the car. I've got 2 more to do just like it. And it's that easy. You don't have to know how it works. You don't have to know the names of any of those parts. All you have to do is kind of pay attention to what you're taking apart so you don't lose anything. Clean everything up real good. Just put it back together. Hope this helps.